is good, guys? M.V.K here, back again. How's everybody doing on their end? Your Alpha's here to talk about something that I'm sure many of you, many of the pack, was wondering, what he talk about? He's kind of quiet on this. Is he going to talk about it? Will he talk about it? And you damn right your boy's going to talk about it. And it's what came out of the realm of Disney Plus Day. First and foremost, before I get started, I just like to say to all those negative, butt-hugging, spoiled little punks who were going on Twitter and basically say, "Oh my God, Disney, where's all those? Where's those all them trailers?" You spoiled pricks. Get over yourself, okay? Get over yourself. The one thing that I have become really sensitive about in our community, the geek community, is just how spoiled certain people have gotten. And it pisses me off because it's like, you guys want everything so quick, so this, so that. They showed us little teasers of the shows. So what? They showed us teasers, but you want more. More. Grow up. There's a word. Yeah, you heard that word? There's a word that is used for anybody who acts this way. You know, it's two words to be exact. It's two words. Listen to it. Listen real carefully. Listen. Here go right here. Grow up. That's a little hurricane came out of, you know. Anyway, let's get to what I was going to talk about. I'm sorry, I had to get that off my chest. Now, Disney Plus Day gave us a slew of things in terms of animated things that are going to be exclusive on Disney Plus, as well as more Disney Plus Marvel Universe MCU series. The Echo, I wasn't surprised at because we already knew that there was a spin-off for Maya Lopez. I'm happy for that because I'm a huge Echo fan. And of course there was talks of Agatha Harkness getting an animated spin-off, and it is true, she is getting one. Great. Catherine, oh my God, she was great as that character. And I'm not even that big on Agatha Harkness as a character, you know. I know what she was in the comics and everything like that, but I was never really she gave more essence to that character, which was great. And more things about the teaser for She-Hulk. I like what I saw there. I will talk about that. The Moon Knight, I'll talk about that. And of course, Ms. Marvel, I'll talk about that in another video. Each of those will get videos. But then, of course, there was the animated stuff. There's going to be an animated feature of Marvel Zombies. I'll talk about that. And I'll talk a little bit about the new MCU Spider-Man cartoon. I'll definitely got to talk about that. I have a lot to say about that. But if you hear in that background music, it's all about the children of the atom, baby. That's what it's about. Because after speculation upon speculation upon speculation, it finally happened. There is the 90s X-Men cartoon series that aired on Fox Kids back in the day from 1992 to 1997 is returning, revived, with many of the original cast returning, so we get Cal Dodd back as Wolverine, the quintessential voice of Wolverine. Yeah, I'm sorry, but yes, he is. To me, he is the quintessential voice of Wolverine. I know a lot of people like Steve Bloom, and Steve Bloom, you're good, sir. But when I'm reading Wolverine in comics, you know whose voice I hear coming out of Wolverine? Cal Dodd. Unfortunately, Norman Spencer, who voiced Cyclops, passed away, and they're going to have to find someone, a replacement, super replacement. I know as well as I know Miss Hale is going to be voicing a character in there. Y'all know me, I'm a huge fan of her. But more importantly, this came out of not really left field. It came out because many of us knew speculations when we were wondering, could this really happen? Could they really could they revitalize this? Now, the head writer of this revival, which is entitled X-Men 97, which will be exclusively to Disney Plus, is going to be the same head writer, the same person that wrote The Witcher. So that person being going from the world of The Witcher now to the world of X-Men, and I want to make sure I get that name right, because I'll PO'd if I don't. Bo DeMaio is the head writer. Okay, now if you can remember from how many of you can remember that series back to back? Raise your hand. Every episode. And as you remember, it ran for 5 seasons, and season 5 is not really talked about in high regard because the different artwork and it just kind of tanked. There were a few episodes that I enjoyed. For example, the episode where we saw Cap and Wolverine in World War II, that was great. But outside of that, there are not that many good episodes of season 5, especially when that artwork changed. It just was not. But the X-Men, this series gave us a great intro, and please keep that intro. Please keep that theme. Please keep that intro. Please keep the previously on X-Men. Come on, that was great. I would love to keep that. But more importantly, it is probably regarded as probably the best animated comic adaptation in the history of comic book adaptation animated series. They gave us some of the greatest X-Men stories. They transitioned those stories from the comics to the small screen, and they did a pretty damn good job at it. Sure, they had to change certain things, like for example, the Hellfire Club wasn't called the Hellfire Club. They were called the Inner Circle. I hope y'all give them the Hellfire Club. None of this Inner Circle nonsense, please. I beg of you, please. That's one thing. But they did a good job. The series gave all these great characters a voice that many of us still to this day, like me, continue to hear when we see them speak in the comics. To this day, when I hear Rogue, I'm forgetting the actress's name, I hear her voice. When Gambit speaks, I hear that voice, even though he's not talking too much in third person in the comics, but I hear that voice. Cyclops, Wolverine, Professor Xavier, I hear that. So to get a revival of this series, that means a lot to us as a whole, as fans and people who grew up with it. It came out in '92. You know how old I was when it came out? I was 10 years old and I had already knew who the X-Men were. I was a fan of them since I started picking up comics to read. I was 10. And to hear those voices come out was great. It was great. You loved it. And to see that series touch on things, and I know there's going to probably be, they're going to get woke and let's put that at ease right there, first and foremost. For everybody out here that's saying, please don't make this series woke, where the hell have you been? The X-Men have always been about that. Always been about equality. And still doing things to protect the people that hate them. That's the daily life of the mutant. Even though sometimes I do wish that theme kind of died down. But unfortunately, like in reality, there is always still going to be racism. There's still racism in X-Men universe, Marvel universe, up towards mutants. Because as always, what is that question, that saying, people feel what they don't understand. Plain and simple. So get that out of your head right there. Because that's going to be the case. But the series ended, if you can remember how it ended, Professor Xavier got seriously hurt by Henry Peter Gyrich. And the only way to save his life, to save him, he had to go with his lover, his girlfriend, Landra, the Shi'ar. Landra took him away, but the final words, some of the most greatest words that I'll never forget that episode, was Xavier, like a proud dad, talking to his children before on his dying bed or so. You know, basically telling each X-Men how he feels about them. I love what he said about Wolverine, talking about, you know, Wolverine, savage, loner. But look around you. You found a family. You found what you were looking for. Rogue, so beautiful, but unable to touch. But look around you. You have touched us all. Cyclops. Why your father? It's stuff like that. I know that scene line from line, so trust me. But he had to leave. Even Magneto, who at the beginning of the episode was really trying to start a revolution, comes to his friend. And we saw Professor Xavier basically say, I may not be here and embody my X-Men, but my spirit will always be here. And that's the only way to save his life. He had to go, he had to leave. Now, with that being said, that's how the series ended. A little, but it did give a kind of a proper ending. And with the X-Men gone, Fox decided to bring in another Marvel super team. And they gave us that garbage Avengers cartoon. Sorry, it was garbage. You liked it. More power to you, but it was garbage. It really was. They tried to take everything the X-Men did and try to put it into the Avengers. Even having Ant-Man be the leader. Hawkeye came off like Wolverine. It was like, what is this? You know? I like the fact they had Tigra in there. That was great. I will say that. And Tigra was voiced by the woman who voiced Rogue. I'll give them that. But the fact of the matter is, it still left us bittersweet, and we wouldn't get another X-Men cartoon until early 2000s with X-Men Evolution, which was good. And then after X-Men Evolution, we get Wolverine and X-Men, which a lot of people didn't like, and mainly who I've spoken to because of the name. It was a good X-Men cartoon, and we would have gotten a season 2 until I don't know what happened. And to see what season 2 was going, we were going to get Age of Apocalypse. So we had, us X-Men fans were waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And now, this is happening. This is happening. So where can they go now in the series? I have a few ideas. Am I happy? Yes. Can't you see this look on my face? Wow. I'm happy. I'm so happy. I hope the artwork is good. I hope the writing is good. And what storylines could they take? What characters do I want to see? I'm going to talk about all this right now. So let's talk about where should this series go next. We saw, should Magneto still be an antagonist, or should he be a anti-protagonist? Like he's still on the borderline, because I don't think I want to see Magneto leading the X-Men. I don't want to see that. I want to see Scott and Jean and all of them take up the slack as being the headmasters, or and teaching a new generation of mutants, and still doing their thing as heroes. So that's for one thing. So I would like to see Magneto maybe not be showcased as much, but be around. Same thing with Mystique. She's got to get over the fact that Rogue is never coming back to her. So she just can be an antagonist now. Her and the rest of the Brotherhood, Pyro, Blob, and Avalanche, I'd love to see Mr. Mojo come back. That'd be great to see. Mojo. It would always be cool to see maybe some more of Cable, because I really enjoyed that. I also would love to see Mr. Sinister return. My favorite X-Men villain. You can't kill this guy. You can't. So bring him back. Let's go. You gotta bring him back. I'd love to see Sinister come back. But characters, in terms of, we saw a lot of X-Men in this unit. Basically, this team was based off of the Jim Lee, Mark Silverstone team, the gold team, and the blue team. That just shows my age right there. So we had Cyclops, Jean, Beast, Rogue, Wolverine, Storm, Gambit, Jubilee, and that's all. Yeah, pretty much. But I would love to see other characters fully join the team. A good example of that, Colossus. We've seen Colossus in guest star in, I believe, 2 episodes, if I remember. Yeah, 2. Yeah, it was 2. When he first came to America, and he got set up by the Juggernaut. Then he came back when Omega Red was taking over the Soviet Union at the time, before it became Russia again. So that was a really good episode. Then we saw, of course, then there was Nightcrawler. I'd love to see Kurt join the team. Kurt guest starred on 2 episodes. The first one where they first introduced him, and where he helped Wolverine kind of find forgiveness and pray to God and things like that. And then, of course, there was the episode where he finally got to realize who his mother really is, and why did Mystique dump him, and things like that, and all his other half siblings, including Rogue. I'd love to see Nightcrawler return, and more importantly, I'd love to see Bobby, Iceman, return. Why? Simple. He's one of the founding members of the X-Men. They did go on record to say, well, he is one of the original X-Men. In that only episode he was in, which was called Cold Front Comfort, where we got to see the X-Men fight X-Factor, which was great. I'd love to see that. Bobby come back after hearing that Professor is kind of gone, and him saying, you know what? I owe it to him to return. I owe it to him. I'd love to see Bobby return. I'd love to see Scott and Alex meet, finally realize that they're brothers, because when they met, it was almost like they didn't even know each other. All they knew is that powers don't hurt each other, but they don't. It was like, wait, what? I do not remember that. I'd like to see maybe Warren join the team finally, Arcane, because Shard, Bishop's sister, basically said, Archangel, destined to be an X-Men. So we know he joined somewhere down the line, and he's supposed to be, when they did the flashbacks of the original X-Men, we saw a winged mutant on the team, but it was like, okay, is that Warren? Because the way they spoke is like, they didn't even know each other. So yeah, would it be a good idea to see X-23 in the series? Maybe. They touched on the Weapon X a lot in this series, which was great. Morph, could we see Morph fully rejoin the team after his episodes he's had, where he finally go, I'm ready to return. That's who. Yeah, Morph did come back, but it'd be great to see him. But the stories, what could they touch on? Could the school be opened up as a school now? We see some of the young X-Men like Surge and Rockslide and Anal and Dusk and all those younger mutants that we saw. What stories could they touch on outside of? They did the Phoenix Saga, the Dark Phoenix Saga, things like that. Could we see the Messiah Complex, or could we see? I doubt they'll go the Mutant Massacre. They wouldn't do that. I doubt they would not do that. Could we see? I don't know, maybe House of M. I know some people said, yeah, we could do House of M. We do know that in this Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch know that Magneto, they're still his kids. Yeah, just saying. So there are still a lot of things that they can bring and revitalize in this series that could work. You take some of the newer stories that have come out after the late 90s that were still good, but also give us nuanced stories. But I definitely would love to see some of those characters return that we saw guest star. What's Juggernaut gonna do if they bring Juggernaut back? The last time we saw Juggernaut in the show, what happened? He had his powers taken away. They gave it back to him because it was killing him, and he got it back. And then when it looked like he was gonna fight the X-Men, he walked away and said another time. And it was just like, okay, could we see Juggernaut return? Who else could we see? Other villains I'd love to see are Exodus. We didn't really get to see them. He's a big time X-Men villain. Mr. Sinister I would love to see back. Would I like to see Apocalypse? Maybe. I wouldn't mind seeing Sylvanor back. But I'd love to see a story where maybe Rogue and Gambit do get married. They get married. Another great story, which I think would be really good, is touch on that Wolverine gets his full memory back. He remembers everything. Like he knows now. There's still a lot of things they can touch on in this, besides just this is a revival of the classic series. There's so much they can touch on that just every time I think about it, I get excited. I'm like, oh my God, they could do this. Oh my, oh. I'm having a nerdgasm every time I think about something. But then in the background, you're gotten people already saying, well, you guys revitalized this now. What about revitalizing another series that didn't get a proper send-off? Like Spectacular Spider-Man. I'd love for them to do that. But this is not about Spidey. Sorry. This is about the X-Men. But a lot of things that I just touched on, I'd love to see. X-Factor has gone through some changes. Could we see other guest star like, Psylocke did guest star in one episode. We heard her talk about her brother, but we saw Captain Britain, but she was saying something else. So there are a lot of things to touch on in this series, but I would love to see, other things like, for example, Rachel Gray. Maybe she comes from the future. We saw Bishop, Forge. We saw so many different characters, and to me the series did a great job of portraying them, but I'd love to see what this series would do with somebody like Laura, X-23, and some of the younger X-Men, like I said, like Rockslide and Surge and Gentile and Anal and Windflower and Dusk and all these young X-Men. I would love to see the school become a school again. Just saying, it would be really cool to see. And it's funny when you look at Jubilee in that, especially in the 5th season, she looked like she was more in her Generation X look, and then her old school look. So it would be really cool to see that. Could we see the I don't know if I would want to see that storyline where the X-Men kind of had a insurgent, they broke apart, and some stayed in Westchester, the others went out to San Francisco. Could we see Sword? And there's just so much. There's too much to think about. But the point is, this revival of this classic series, guys, is just makes me happy. And I've been thinking about it ever since they announced it. I'm like, where could they go now with this? That's the main question. Where will they take influence from? You know, will they continue? I mean, they touched on so much in that original run. Like I said, Dark Phoenix, the Phoenix Saga, the Morlocks, the Weapon X, even the Phalanx. They touched on all this. The Savage Land. They did all this stuff. And looking at the X-Men, looking at all the villains they used, I'm like, they still have so much they can use and some they can bring back. But the fact is, yes, try not to focus on Magneto as much. I know he's a great guy. I like Magneto too, but there are other great villains. Try not to focus too much on this. You know, spread the wealth like you did. You know what else I loved? When many episodes, it was centered on one character. They did one for Wolverine, they did one for Beast, Gambit, Rogue, Scott. Hell, they even had Purple Man in the show. Come on. The amount of characters they can use reads like a who's who. But what do you think? Do you like what I'm talking about? Do you like bringing back the characters we saw, joining the team? What do you want from this? I look forward to hearing you, my pack. And with that being said, guys, don't forget to subscribe, share, comment, and instead of pushing the like button, what are we? We wolves. Clawing. Catch you guys next time.